Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Enola Holmes 2, the sequel of the Millie Bobby Brown, Sherlock Holmes adjacent film series, Netflix original movie series. The first film came out during the pandemic, starring Millie Bobby Brown, also starring Henry Cavill. I enjoyed the first movie. I'm surprised that they made a second. I didn't really hear a whole lot of buzz around the first movie, but I absolutely loved it. I enjoy the Sherlock Holmes types of mysteries, and this was a fun new take where Enola Holmes is the younger sister of Sherlock Holmes, and the mom played by Helena Bonham Carter. She has another brother as well who is not featured in this film as he was in the first film. And in this one, it is Enola setting up her own detective agency, where the first film was her trying to track down her mom who went missing, and Sherlock Holmes was kind of doing his own investigation of the same thing. Got wrapped up into a bigger narrative of what's going on, of what her mom was doing. Where this one's a little different, obviously Sherlock Holmes, the famous brother of Enola Holmes, the one everybody knows about, and he's taking all of the press away from her, so she's having a rough time trying to get her detective business off the ground. But she gets one client, and it is a missing girl, the quote-unquote sister of another girl who they're more like orphans that live together. You know, they're like friend sisters or whatever. Both work at the same factory. She also had a second job working at a theater, and she went missing. So this girl calls upon Enola to help find her sister, which she was struggling, not only because she is basically living in the shadow of her more famous brother who does the exact same thing, but also her age, also her gender, all things contributing to the fact people not really giving her a chance. But I loved the first movie, like I said. Millie Bobby Brown, obviously from the Stranger Things TV series, Netflix original show. I would say this performance is far more entertaining from Millie Bobby Brown than her performance in Stranger Things. I had, in the most recent season of Stranger Things, I had a massive issue with her performance and that character 11, which is a weird character, but for whatever reason, she has never learned how to speak like a normal person. And it doesn't make any sense, and it's very annoying the way her character speaks. Other than that, I enjoy the show, but this is a much more fun performance from her. There is a lot of breaking the fourth wall where she speaks to camera, very Ferris Bueller's Day Off style. Does that constantly in the first movie. Does it a lot in this movie. I don't know if it's as much, but it definitely happens a lot. I could do without as much of the fourth wall, talking to camera type stuff. I don't know exactly what that's called necessarily. I think it has a different term, but a little bit much, but definitely, you know, it adds to, she's intelligent, she's funny, she's independent, raised by her mom throughout this movie. She has flashbacks to lessons that her mom taught her. Obviously, her mom did a good job with Sherlock Holmes. Maybe not the brother. The brother from the first movie, very annoying guy, horrible kind of person. Not really in this movie. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this movie. It's another mystery. You know, it wraps up really well at the end, right? The end of this movie has a satisfying wrap-up, makes everything make sense, makes it all interesting, makes it all worth it. But there is an aspect to this movie where they're trying, both Enola Holmes and Sherlock have these cues. They're clues. They're working on different cases, or so they think. And I mean, they're different but related. They're connected in some way. But the idea that people would be using codes, speaking in codes, to the extent this movie assumes they are, at first doesn't make any sense, right? Specifically with the case Enola's working on, trying to find this girl who went missing. Like, she finds a love letter, and embedded in that love letter is code of an address. She finds a sheet of music, and within that sheet of music is another code. And it doesn't really necessarily make any sense why there would be so much code writing, but in the end, it kind of justifies it, right? While watching it, I'm like, this is like, it's interesting. It's interesting seeing her and also Sherlock both breaking codes. There was a lot of that in the first movie as well. But it just like, why would so many people be like, why would you even think to look for a code in this situation? Doesn't really make any sense, but it all makes sense at the end, which I appreciated that. It also has the love story, which there was kind of shades of that in the first movie. The character from the first movie, Tewksbury, the kid that Enola helps out when she's running away from and trying to find her mom in the first movie. He becomes a politician. It's a big aspect of the first movie, and he is back in this movie. He's doing a lot of good things as a politician, passing a lot of laws for people to help the people. And obviously, their kind of love connection grows a bit in this. So I enjoy, it's got a sweet little love story as well. So I enjoyed all that stuff, has fun action moments, her trying to run away. She knows jujitsu. I think better fight scenes maybe in the first movie than in this one, but still some fun action moments in this movie. So, like, from top to bottom, I really enjoyed it. And it's just weird because I don't hear people ever mentioning this movie, the series. It's fun, considering that there was Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr. that were a lot of fun. The Guy Ritchie, a lot more action, very interesting. This one taking a different, perspective on the Sherlock Holmes, where the main character of this is not Sherlock Holmes. It is a sister that he apparently had. This is based on a book series, which makes sense of how well things kind of come together at the end. I think they're able to translate whatever's in the book pretty well into this movie to where it makes sense and it comes together, which I can imagine being difficult, taking a story from a book and cutting it down to a movie script without losing too much. So I enjoy it. I enjoyed all of the aspects of this movie. I will spoil a few things just to talk about some of the interesting aspects of this movie. I do love that her mom is obsessed with explosives, which we not only saw in the first film, but it definitely becomes more of her character in this movie. Even though Helena Bonham Carter isn't necessarily a big aspect of this movie, she does come in at a pivotal moment, and it's clear that she her thing is blowing things up. That is her kind of specialty. So I appreciate that as well. It's just a fun movie. It's a fun movie. Millie Bobby Brown's having a lot of fun doing this movie, it seems like. The character's a lot of fun. The fact that Henry Cavill is playing Sherlock Holmes, I think, is amazing. It's also kind of mind-blowing to consider the fact that Henry Cavill is the son of Helena Bonham Carter in this reality. Age-wise, Helena Bonham Carter is, I think she's in her 60s or something. She looks amazing for her age. And Henry Cavill is somehow younger than me, which I should not be as surprised when I find out that grown men that seem like they should be older than me are in fact younger than me. He is younger than me by a few years. But those two people, it's kind of mind-blowing that in the reality of this movie that Sherlock Holmes, played by Henry Cavill, came from Helena Bonham Carter. And who knows what the father in the situation looked like, right? He's not around. I don't think we ever hear about what the father of these kids was like. But yeah, I like the world building, the characters. Even there's this character Edith who teaches jujitsu, who taught Millie Bobby Brown how to do jujitsu moves, which helped a lot. She's back in this movie. All of the characters that they kind of set up from the first movie are back. A lot of them, not the annoying brother. I don't think he's anywhere around. So I enjoyed all of that. The world building, everything, like the way it looks being back in like the 1800s England looks cool. Kind of seeing Sherlock Holmes as a side character instead of the main character. Also seeing the dynamic between Enola and Sherlock as a brother and sister, as they're both trying to do the same thing. They're both actually doing the same thing, but you know, there's so much of difficulty for Enola to do the same thing as her famous brother does, right? Like Chris Rock, famous stand-up comedian, has brothers who do stand-up comedy. And I can imagine it being very difficult being the lesser-known brother trying to do the exact same thing as your famous brother who's like one of the greats in the art form, right? And some people love the brother more than Chris Rock. And I could see that being a thing for Enola. She's scrappy, she's, you know, rebellious, and it's clear that like has the same abilities as Sherlock Holmes, but is still kind of refining her abilities, right? They kind of both see the same clues, but he's, with his experience, he's a little bit sharper with things, but still brilliant in both cases. So like I said, there's going to be a few spoilers. Nothing much. I don't think I'll spoil the how it ends, other than it is a satisfying end when everything kind of comes together, as most like detective movies do. Right? That's what all of these types of movies, whether it's a Sherlock Holmes movie, an Enola Holmes movie, whether it's like the Rian Johnson Knives Out, or the current movie with the same detective, I forget his name. But a lot of those movies hinge on when the detectives put everything together, or even the TV show, The After Party. Very similar type of an idea where it's, you know, where everything has to come together. If it doesn't come together in a satisfying way, then it can really fall apart. And there's definitely movies, mystery type detective movies, where it doesn't come together and it kind of falls when it tries to wrap up the story, and it really it's not satisfying because so much hinges. Like, you can have an interesting movie, but if at the moment you're trying to narratively tie all these mysteries together and expose the master plan of what's going on, if that falls flat, like, everything else is kind of meaningless. Like, there's so much weight put on how everything comes together. And I think this movie does a great job doing it. Let's take a little break from the show to promote gift certificates. If you want to purchase artwork for somebody, you have an art lover in your life, and you think they would like my art, but you don't know what painting to get them. I have over 2,000 original pieces of art for sale in my store, along with shirts and prints and other things. So I can understand that being a bit daunting if you're trying to buy something for somebody else. Give them the gift certificate, and then they can go to my website, inspireddisorder.com, and they can buy whatever paintings they want. They can buy whatever prints they want. They can buy t-shirts. They can buy hats. They can buy all the different merch, gift certificates, which are available currently at inspireddisorder.com. And now let's get back to the show. Also in this movie, you're seeing Enola not only on this search for this girl who works at a match factory, going into the match factory, kind of trying to get more information. You're also seeing her trying to fit into polite society, which is a similar hurdle that she had in the first movie, especially from her other brother, who sent her to like prep school or whatever that thing, boarding school, for her to quote unquote become part of civilized society, you know, wearing the costumes, doing and saying the things that people do in quote unquote polite society. That is, it's just so weird. I mean, it's on one hand, you know, it's just it's all performative, right? The way the upper echelon, the polite society acts is like so performative and very bullshit, right? And you see that in this movie when she goes to a ball and there's a whole thing where it's like she's not allowed to talk to a guy without being supervised. There needs to be a chaperone for her to even talk to a person in private. It's not polite society. There's this whole flirting culture that happens with the fans, which is very much like peacocking, like what actual birds do in some ways. And it's like there's these quote unquote rules that exist, and like things need to be performed in certain ways at certain times for them to be quote unquote accepted. It is just insanity. It is insanity. And it's like I don't know. It's just, I'm on the side of Enola Holmes, where she's like, she has to learn these things to pass, but she sees how ridiculous, she sees right through how ridiculous the whole charade is. Also in this movie, Dr. Watson, who has not teamed up with Sherlock in this kind of version of things, is Himesh Patel, who was in, I believe he was in, what was that show, that miniseries, Station 11. He's one of the main characters of Station 11. I did not, until seeing his picture right now in IMDb, I didn't read, because he's got like, you know, weird facial hair, he's got the top hat, he's, you know, amazing. I love that guy. He's great in Station 11. He's good in this movie. Not a big part, but it's cool to see that's the same guy from that show. So good. Grail, this kind of police officer who walks with a cane, played by David Thewlis, who I think he's great. I don't think I've ever known his name, but he's always great in things I've seen him in. I want to say he was in the Harry Potter series, like Prisoner of Azkaban, I believe, maybe in different ones, but he's great as well. Really, it's such a fun. It's so weird that like I just don't hear anybody talk about this movie. Obviously, it had to have done well on Netflix, the first one, for them to come out with a second one. So maybe it's just not in my circles of people that watch movies have seen and talk about the first one. Maybe it is more for a younger audience. Maybe. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. So fitting into polite society, all that kind of stuff. Sherlock is working on like a money laundering case. And it's another aspect, like how ridiculous it seems that people would be hiding coded messages in love letters or in songs. When he finally figures out what the code is for what he's investigating, is interesting, but it's like doesn't make any sense. But once you do find out it makes sense, it's because the person is like trying to show how much smarter they are than the Holmes family, right? Able to stay a step ahead while also giving them clues with the things that they do. And very interesting how it's done, despite how initially it seemed ridiculous. Like, there's this money that's being laundered, and it's going to all of these different banks, right? All tied together with the first bank number, but no names. All just kind of, it's very ambiguous to Sherlock what's going on, why everything's happening. And then he figures out that the pattern of the movements of money on a map, like he has a map, he's got the red string, he's got little post-it notes or, you know, little pieces of notes on there, and he realizes that the patterns that the money is moving in are dance steps. And then by researching what the dance steps are that they are referencing, he's able to put letters to those dance steps. And within those letters, he re-scrambles them to see that there's a message directly for him. Super interesting, right? I can't think of a time in movies where the types of dancing were in some way part of a code. Like the types of codes that are in this movie, despite on the face initially being like weird and like overkill, doesn't make sense. When they do get broken by these intelligent people, the Holmeses, it's super interesting, super unique, like very different, very way different than the Guy Ritchie and Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock movies, which those are more like action movies. And he sees clues and things like that and is able to, like, in his head, know all of the moves he's going to do in order to achieve a thing. Like, there's definitely a type of intelligence that exists in those movies, but not to the extent of, like, uncovering codes that I can think of. It's been a while since I've watched, and I enjoy those Sherlock Holmes movies, but I don't think of those movies as like these unique expressions of intelligence as much as fun, like, action adventure movies. Which, you know, I enjoy that. That's kind of Guy Ritchie kind of doing a thing that he's good at doing. But I appreciate that these movies really have that intelligent code breaking, like the way the story is kind of uncovered is very, very interesting, like super, you know, it works well with this, I would say. But that was interesting, finding out that they were dance moves. That was super interesting. Of course, they kind of find out that these cases are related, that the person laundering money is also connected to this match factory, which I also love of this movie, that the plot is like connected to history. It's like expressing this moment in history of these match girls, these girls who would be hired by this match factory to box up matches. And what's happening in this movie is that there's this disease called typhus that's going around where, like, your jaw would get swollen up, which is an actual disease. I don't know if it was called typhus. I forget what the term is. A different term with the article I read. And in this movie, there's a strike because they find out that this chemical is poisonous to people. This new process that they're using to make the matches. And they go on a strike. And apparently that strike, the match girl strike, was a real strike that actually happened in the UK. And it's the first strike by women for women, right? The overall historical nature of this movie is to not only show this character, Enola Holmes, this young woman who is smart, she's able to fight, she's very independent, she's not needing her brother's assistance. Like, in many, many instances, she is coming to the same conclusions her brother is, and is very intent on getting herself known in the detective world on her own without her brother's help. So the overall, like, characters of this movie, the story of this movie is very empowering to women, but also the extra added historical tie-in of this match strike and just how, not only how powerful women can be, but also how powerful unions can be, how powerful going on strike can be as a voice for workers to have some say and make some change in their life when businesses are taking advantage of them, which is kind of, sadly, in the year 2022, is something that workers are still having to struggle to do to form unions and have a voice when the money and corporations are raking in gigantic record-breaking profits, and people are being treated like shit at work. And a lot of the media is treating employees like it's their fault, right? They're blaming the victim. This whole quiet quitting thing of how just calling people lazy, when in fact it's like, we see how much money these corporations, how record-breaking profits these corporations are raking in, taking advantage of inflation in order to price gouge people, and then not compensating the people who actually do the work in these corporations, whether it's what we're seeing with Twitter now that Elon Musk has taken over, or Starbucks literally closing stores, literally firing people who are trying to unionize. You see the same thing with Bezos trying to keep his employees from unionizing. Like, there is a massive struggle in the year 2022 for workers to get some kind of leverage and some kind of power to sit at the table and dictate how they can be treated better. It's insane. It is insane that like we've gone like 200 years since this movie takes place, and we're still struggling in a lot of ways with the exact same things. It's ridiculous. Let's take a little break from the show to promote The Many Faces. That's right, I am also an artist. I do ink paintings on paper of abstract faces. A new face, a new painting gets released every single day over at inspireddisorder.com. So head on over to my website to purchase original artwork directly from the artist. Also, there are prints available for select images. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com, buy original art, buy prints if that's your jam, if you want 8x10 prints on high quality paper. Also, if you're looking to wear some art, there are shirts available with original artwork by myself. Select faces from The Many Faces are also available in t-shirt form. You go to inspireddisorder.com, you buy original artwork, you buy prints, you buy shirts. You're supporting an artist directly. And if you're the type of person that likes to invest in NFTs, there are also NFTs available for select faces. Go to inspireddisorder.com now. And now let's get back to the show. You know, one of the moments where the mom comes back into this movie, shows up in this movie, is Enola getting put in jail, which is similar to the first movie when she gets caught and she's put in this like preparatory school, right? She's going to be taught how to act like a lady. And in this movie, she's being blamed for a murder. She gets put in jail. And there's kind of this... It's kind of interesting how she gets broken out, because you would think the level of intelligence of this movie, and especially the Holmes family in general, how brilliant they are. There's constant flashbacks of Enola learning things from her mom, who clearly she knows a lot as well. But instead of using some like master plan in order to get Enola out of prison, it's more brute force. It's more of the mom's character and her love of explosives getting her out. So kind of fun, like in a situation where you would think there would be more of a Rube Goldberg-esque type of a way they break her out. It is literally just blowing a hole in the wall. But I love that she gets out, and then there's a great fight scene with Enola and Edith and her mom, Eudoria, where they're fighting cops, right? They get their wagon gets busted, and they end up having to fight, which is like, it's shot in a way where, you know, it's not really showing you the fight necessarily, right? We're not seeing that these actresses all went through massive fight training along with these cops, these actors that play the cops, right? But it's shot and edited in a way where it's at least satisfying enough to like, and believable enough that like these women are kicking ass, right? Which, of course, in a different movie by a different director, these women would have been put, like if this was a John Wick movie, they would have been well trained, and it would have been that fight scene would have been shot in a way to like showcase all that these actors have learned to do their own stunts and to do their own fight scenes. But I still appreciated this, even though it was like if you know what you're looking for, if you've seen enough action movies with fights in it, you can kind of tell like if they've trained or doing their own stunts. But this one is just shot in a way that makes it still makes it look badass, and I still enjoy it. And it's one of those scenes where you finally get to see her mom show back up, which is great because she's kind of in hiding after the first movie still. And you get the sweet little romance between Enola and Tewksbury, right? He teaches her how to dance in this gigantic restroom, right? This restroom that's larger than most apartments I've lived in, right? Teaching her how to dance at this ball, like really quick. And then there's a similar scene in some ways where they're in a carriage and she's trying to teach him how to fight, which, let's be honest, learning how to fight way more difficult than learning how to follow somebody else's lead while dancing, right? You're not even leading in the dance. You just have to follow along. Way easier than learning how to fight. So, and let's just say when it comes time for him to fight, maybe not the best at fighting, but there is a kind of a great where everything kind of gets tied together. There is a great clashing of the good guys and the bad guys in this movie that I really did enjoy. So the romance is sweet, comes together really great. At the very end, you see the brother and sister Holmes, Enola and Sherlock, bonding. He invites her to join him to be his partner, and she doesn't want to. She knows that if she does that, she'll just always be in his shadow, which is something that she's definitely dealing with in this movie already, just trying to get out from under his shadow just by having his name. But, even when given the chance, and it was like the whole time, like, why don't they work together? It would be great if they worked together. But it makes sense that she doesn't want to, and she wants to do her own thing. And, they at least become allies. They're like, okay, well, let's at least be friends, come over, hang out regularly, because he was like stuck in his case trying to figure out with this laundered money, got into drinking, kind of spiraling out of control. So in an effort to keep him from, spiraling out of control again, which I thought was sweet. I enjoy that. I enjoy that, like, Henry Cavill's like this side character, but playing this like historic, well-known detective, But yeah, and I enjoyed the historical tie-in. That's a lot of fun too. And it ends with a great quote, which I appreciate, which is something that I think is very important, especially in today where it's insane the precipice at which we stand in this country with midterms coming up, with knowing where one of the political parties, the direction they want to take, how they want to completely gut every social service that does just the smallest a bit of help for the people. Like, they want to eliminate the government from helping people in every way and only help major corporations and billionaires. And whether it's companies fighting against unions, whether it's politicians putting targets on their opponents' backs, encouraging violence, literally encouraging death against their opponents, and then celebrating when their base like attempts to follow their orders, attempting to overthrow the government, attempting to eliminate voting rights, attempting to eliminate civil rights, human rights, women's rights. And this movie showing the power of not only women, but of people coming together, and the power of how an idea can spark a flame. And it only takes one flame to start a fire. And I think that is the major message of this movie, and just a major idea that I think we all should understand and realize, that every major movement starts with a single step. So we all need to start taking steps in the direction we want this country to go. And definitely, when you're taking a break from changing our reality and improving the world we live in, and you're sitting down, recuperating from your day of changing the world, flick on Netflix and watch yourself some Enola Holmes. Because not only did I like the first movie, but the second movie's great, and I hope this becomes a franchise of films that just keeps going, because I'm a huge fan. I love it. I love the characters. I love the world building. It's so much fun. So check it out, Enola Holmes 2.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.